Hey everybody, what's up? How you doing?
When we talk about indie games, we often think about small projects that capture lightning in a bottle. Titles made just by one or two people that manage to resonate with players far beyond what we expected. Games like Undertale, Celeste, or Hollow Knight come to mind. In 2023, another name quietly joined the list, Pseudoregalia. Developed by a single creator, Pseudoregalia is a surreal 3D platformer that wears its inspiration proudly but also forges its own identity. What started as a submission for a game jam quickly grew into a cult favorite. Gaining attention for its fluid movement system, strange dreamlike world. Developed by a single creator, Pseudoregalia is a surreal 3D platformer that wears its inspiration proudly but also forges its own identity. Gaining attention for its fluid movement system, strange dreamlike world, and a great design. Pseudoregalia wasn't born out of massive Kickstarter campaigns or years of hype. It started as something smaller, a small project that snowballed. Developer of the game had originally been experimenting with movement mechanics inspired by classic 3D games like Castlevania 64 and Metroid Prime. But instead of making a retro clone, the developer focused on pure movement. The game's movement was inherently fun. Before you even add combat or narrative, players immediately noticed. Word spread across Twitter, YouTube, streaming platforms. Suddenly Pseudoregalia had an audience. What's most impressive is that this was largely a solo effort. The textures, animation, music, and level design all came from one developer, giving the game a unified personal vision. And that shows. Pseudoregalia doesn't feel like it was made by a committee. It feels like a dream someone had, then coded into reality. The heart of this game is movement. From the moment you take control of the mysterious goat-legged protagonist, Sybil, you realize this isn't your average 3D platformer. You can kick walls, dive, dash, chain together acrobatic moves, and discover shortcuts that let you essentially break the game's level design. But the thing is, it isn't breaking, it's intentional. The more you play, the more fluent you become in Sybil's movement language. The design philosophy echoes something found in the best speedrunning games. Mastery's reward. Instead of punishing you for experimenting, the game encourages it. Finding a tricky wall climb or sequence break isn't cheating, it's discovery. And that's the genius of this game. It feels like a playground where a lot of 3D platformers restrict you, funneling you down corridors and locking off areas. Pseudoregalia opens itself up. The movement system makes even backtracking enjoyable. Running through the same area twice feels completely different depending on your skill level. The world of Pseudoregalia is one of the most striking things about it. Instead of a lush forest or futuristic city, the game places you in a vast, dreamlike environment. Empty castles, echoing caverns, sun-drenched courtyards. Each area feels alien and mysterious. There are no NPCs giving you quests, no long dialogue boxes explaining the lore. Instead, you're left alone with the architecture and soundscape. The minimalism lets players interpret the world in their own way. Some see it as a ruined kingdom, others as a dream landscape, others as a metaphor for isolation. This is where comparisons to games like Shadow of the Colossus or Dark Souls often come up. Like those titles, Pseudoregalia trusts its audience. It doesn't over-explain, it lets mystery do the heavy lifting. The lo-fi aesthetic also contributes to a dreamlike vibe. The pixelated textures, the jagged edges aren't just retro, they feel like fragments of memory, like you're playing a forgotten N64 game that somehow slipped into existence decades later. Narrative-wise, Pseudoregalia doesn't give you much to work with. You play as Sybil, an enigmatic figure with goat-like legs, regal attire, but the game never tells you outright who she is or why she's there. Instead, meaning comes through implication. The title itself, Pseudoregalia, suggests themes of false royalty, broken rule, of something pretending to be grand but hollow at its core. That word pseudo hangs over the entire experience. Are we playing through a dream of the past grandeur? Is Sybil a queen in exile? Or are we intruding on something that was never ours to begin with? This ambiguity is what makes the narrative so powerful. Instead of spelling everything out, it leaves space for players to fill in the blanks. And because movement is so joyful, you're willing to explore deeper, not because the game demands it, but because your curiosity drives you. The huge part of Pseudoregalia's appeal is its soundtrack. The music ranges from moody ambient tracks to triumphant, echoing themes that sound like they're reverberating inside a cathedral. It's atmospheric in a way that perfectly matches surreal environments. The sound design also reinforces the sense of skill. Footsteps echo in massively empty halls. The faint hum of distant areas make the world feel alive even when nothing's happening. The fact this was largely the work of one creator makes it even more impressive. The soundtrack doesn't accompany the game, it feels inseparable from it. It's easy to look at Pseudoregalia and think of its influences. There's a clear DNA from Castlevania, Metroid Prime, Ocarina of Time, and even more obscure platforms like Body Harvest. But what's remarkable is how it transforms those influences into something uniquely modern. Where older games were limited by hardware, Pseudoregalia uses lo-fi visuals as an aesthetic choice. Where classic 3D platformers sometimes had clunky controls, this game polishes movement into something fluid and addictive. It isn't nostalgia bait, it's evolution. One of the reasons Pseudoregalia spread so quickly in online communities is its potential for speedrunning. Because of how open its movement system is, speedrunners immediately gravitated towards this. The game practically begs to be broken in creative ways. Watching skilled players tear through areas using wall kicks and precise jump is a completely different experience from playing casually. And that duality gives the game longevity. It's fun to learn at your own pace, but it's also thrilling to watch experts push it to the limit. This dual appeal, casual joy and competitive mastery, is something very few indie games manage to capture. Upon release, Pseudoregalia didn't just disappear, like so many indie game experiments. Instead, it built momentum. Word of mouth, positive reviews, and streamer coverage helped gain traction. Many players describe it as the best game of the year you've never heard of. Critics praise its tight design and dreamlike atmosphere. And even though it's relatively short, most players finish in a few hours. It leaves a strong impression that lingers long after the credits. In a way, it's part of its charm. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It's a concentrated dose of everything it wants to be. So why does Pseudoregalia matter in the broader landscape of gaming? On the surface, it's just another small indie experience. But beneath that, it's a reminder of what makes games special in the first place. It shows that one person with a clear vision can create something that competes with a big studio. Competes not in budget, but in creativity and heart. It proves that movement alone, when designed well, can carry an entire game. It demonstrates that mastery and atmosphere don't require massive cutscenes or Hollywood voice acting. Sometimes silence says more. Pseudoregalia isn't just a platformer. It's a dream you get to play through, a fragment of a world that feels both alien and familiar. It's proof that indie games can still surprise us, that small projects can leave massive impressions. Whether you're in it for the movement, the mystery, or just experiencing something different, Pseudoregalia deserves a place in the conversation about modern indie classics. It might not have the mainstream recognition of Celeste or Hollow Knight, but for those who've played it, it's unforgettable. The game is also $5 on Steam, so it's not hurting your wallet. Maybe that's the true legacy of Pseudoregalia. Not being a blockbuster, but being a hidden gem. Something personal, something special. Something that reminds us why we fell in love with video games in the first place.